Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Well, welcome back to the Israel issue, and today we're thinking about the first of those gifts that God placed in the roots of Israel, that they might become like light to the Gentiles. And that gift was being adopted as sons. And it's the one that Paul topped his gifts list, which we read in Romans 9:4, and which continues encountering God's glory, receiving the covenants, being taught by the Torah, engaging with temple service, being blessed by the promises, and being descended from the patriarchs. And these gifts were so profound that they continued to have consequence in the life of the people of Israel, whether or not they were in good relationship with the God of Israel. Such that when King Louis XIV of France asked Blaise Pascal for evidence of the supernatural, he replied, "Why, the Jews, Your Majesty, the Jews." But we're going to look even further than this to see how Yeshua redeemed those gifts that God had first placed in Israel's roots to enable them, if they would receive him as their Messiah, to fulfill that calling that God had first given to them to be like light to the Gentiles. And now we're also going to look even further than this to see how God also enabled we who are Gentiles, who have been grafted into Israel, to also draw from those gifts. So let's look at where this first gift began in Israel's experience when God adopted them as sons. When he told Moses to say to Pharaoh, "Israel is my firstborn son. Let my son go so that he may worship me." Now, in God's sight, the firstborn were especially consecrated to him. And this means that even though God gave the status of being firstborn to Israel through adoption, they were still uniquely special to him, like no other people group or nation were. And this he reaffirmed to them again and again and again. In fact, even hundreds of years later, he said through the prophet Hosea, "When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son." And this should have massively shaped how the people of Israel lived through their history, because it mattered to them so much whose son or daughter you were. That's why they so avidly kept all those genealogies. And in fact, if you look up the word son in a concordance, you'll find that there's something like 4,000 references to the word son in the Older Testament. But as we know so well, Israel's story was not one of living up to that status that God had given to them as his firstborn son. And that is why he had to send his own son, Yeshua, to redeem what sonship truly meant. And this Yeshua did because we hear that at both his baptism and also at his transfiguration, there was a voice from heaven which said, "This is my son, whom I love, and with him I am well pleased." And this was, of course, in total contrast to what God would have said to Israel, whom he still loved passionately, but with whom he was not well pleased. So even ahead of the cross, Yeshua was already redeeming that gift of sonship which God had first placed in the roots of Israel. And then through his death and his resurrection, he fulfilled for Israel the prophecy of Psalm 2, which says, "You are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance and the ends of the earth your possession." And so by reclaiming what it meant to be the firstborn son, fully consecrated to God, Yeshua was able to give the right to become children of God to whoever would receive him into their lives as the Messiah. And as they did so, to receive the spirit of adoption, whereby they can cry out, "Abba, Father." As Paul was later to put it, those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the likeness of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And this meant that whatever might have shaped or influenced your sense of identity before, now you are no longer a slave, but a son. And since you are a son, God has also made you into an heir. Now, for this to have consequence in our lives, we have to soak it up, as it were, from the roots of our lives into every part of our lives, into every part of our thinking and every part of our behavior, and without any no-go areas. But as we soak this up to us, it then challenges us to step up to the responsibility of living as heirs of God, honouring the family name, reflecting that through our being heirs, that we can live in that wealth of the character and the being of God, that through him we can honour the family name, and as we do so, to experience the blessings and privileges which go with this, which bears a fruitfulness in our lives which truly is distinctive, and through this that God can draw others to him as the God of Israel, as the one true God. Now, we're going to think about those other gifts in future episodes, but if you'd like to think more about what this means for you, then do go to our website, www.letthelionroar.com, go to the Israel Issue tab, and there you'll find a short study which goes with today's episode to help you think more about it. You'll also find previous episodes that you might like to now look back to and think about and maybe study just a bit more. If you're watching for the first time, please do press that subscribe button so that you'll get it direct in the future, and do tell others about this most vital message. And I look forward to being back with you in the near future with another episode of the Israel Issue.